We tend to think that our manners are the golden standard of human behavior, and we forget that there are so many different cultures in the world, but every country has its own etiquette that is often considered strange or weird by travelers. On the other hand, they might think the same of us when they come to our country. In the end, it's all a matter of paradigm and perspective. So, without further ado, let's dive into these interesting examples of strange etiquette around the world. Stay tuned to number 1 to find out where you're actually encouraged to make a mess when you eat. Number 10. Paying compliments. When you're meeting someone for the first time, it's perfectly normal to compliment something they're wearing or to compliment an item they have by their side. This is quite common to see in the Western world. For example, you might say things such as, "I love the dress you're wearing," or "That shirt looks lovely on you," and stuff like that. We might even go one step further and say something like, "Where'd you pick up that hat? I'd love to get me one." Although this practice is quite common and normal in our society, it's quite different in the Middle East and some African countries such as Senegal and Nigeria. In these regions of the world, expressing such a direct compliment will be interpreted as your wish to possess the item. These countries have developed a special approach to hospitality, and they perceive their guests as a person who's to be respected and taken care of in every possible way. So if you say, "That coat is wonderful," they'll give it to you, or be forced to offer you something else, which is even better and more expensive. Number 9. Using your hands when eating. In North America, we tend to teach our younger generation table manners that include using utensils for most meals. So when we see people eating with their hands, we tend to see this as pretty strange, especially during formal occasions. But in some countries, this is turned upside down. For example, if you decide to eat a burrito in Mexico and you use a knife and fork, you will definitely be going against the norm. You should always eat with your hands. In Germany, it is wrong to use a knife to cut a boiled potato. This is seen as a sign of utter disrespect for the chef because it goes to show that the potato isn't cooked well. But there are also many countries where you're only allowed to eat with your hands. In India, for example, you should never use a fork because they tend to eat everything with their hands. Food is considered sacred in a way, and the way to pay respect to the food is to eat it with your hands. Number 8. Tipping the waiter. When you're at a restaurant and you really like your food and service, you'll automatically tip the waiter or waitress who served you. And people that don't tip are considered disrespectful or cheap. But in Japan, the situation is quite different. In this country, tips are out of the question. Japan is very strict when it comes to work ethics, and workers are encouraged to be at their absolute best when working for a company. And this goes for every company, big and small, including small businesses such as restaurants. If you tip a waiter in Japan, it could be interpreted like you are not satisfied with the service provided, or that you see the waiter worthy of your charity, which is the ultimate offense. There have been numerous cases of waiters returning tip money to their customers because they refuse to be seen in such a way. If you want to pay respect to a waiter in Japan, the best thing would be to give them a small present. But most of the time, a bow and a sincere thank you are more than enough. Number 7. Giving flowers. You must be extra careful with flowers because they can be interpreted in a different way worldwide. The symbolism of flowers has been developed through centuries, and it's really hard to change that many years of deep cultural influence. This problem is more prominent when a particular flower has other meanings, such as a symbol of mourning or death. For example, in France and Germany, common cemetery flowers are carnations, so be careful if you want to bring someone a carnation for a date. On the other hand, in China, white flowers are a symbol of mourning and grieving and should be avoided for happy occasions. Yellow flowers symbolize hatred in Russia and Iran, and in Siberia, they symbolize jealousy. Definitely not suggested to be given to lovers or romantic interests. The number of flowers can also be a big problem. In France, an even number of flowers is a good thing, but in China, it's the even numbers which are considered ominous, while odd numbers are the lucky ones. Seriously though, who knew giving flowers could be so tricky? Number 6. Sticking out your tongue. Although there are some cute and playful ways to stick out your tongue at someone, most people consider this a sign of disrespect. But the world is a wonderful place, and there are all kinds of customs, including one for sticking out your tongue. In New Caledonia, far in the Pacific Ocean, this gesture is actually something positive. It represents energy and wisdom, but also a desire for having these qualities. A similar thing happens in Tibet. If you stick out your tongue there, it actually means you are greeting someone with due respect. According to a Tibetan belief, by doing this, you prove that you don't have a black tongue. And why would you have a black tongue, you ask? Well, if you do, you're believed to be a descendant of an evil king who allegedly had one. Number 5. Slurping. Imagine slurping while you're enjoying your meal in a restaurant. Pretty embarrassing, right? Well, not in all countries. In fact, in a great number of Asian countries, especially in the Far East, it's actually quite nice to slurp while eating. How come? Well, in places such as China and Japan, if you slurp your meal, it actually means you're enjoying your food because it's just that good. It is also a sign of high praise to slurp your soup, for example, because it means it's just so good that you couldn't wait for it to cool off. On the other hand, if you decide not to slurp while eating, it could be interpreted that you don't like the food. The same thing applies to drinking tea. It's also good to slurp it, otherwise, your host might think you hate it. Number 4. Spitting. Nothing is worse than spitting, especially in public. It is a sign of disrespect and a total lack of etiquette. If you really want to insult someone, just spit at them right in the face. Seriously? Nasty. But spitting is also a sign of good things in distant parts of the world. For example, the famous Maasai people of Africa see things in a different way. For them, spitting in public is not awkward at all. They spit at each other in the form of social gesture. That's their way of shaking hands. And not only that, they spit on a young child if it passes by an elderly member of the tribe. And this is not offensive at all, but rather welcoming, because it's seen as a sign of blessing, wishing for health, prosperity, long life. You get the picture. The same thing happens when a new baby is born. People from miles around come to pay their respects and spit on the newborn baby. No thank you. Number 3. Salting the food. If you're, let's say, in a restaurant in the US and your food is not salty, no problem. You'll simply take a shaker and salt it. And although it's quite normal to do this in Western culture, it's completely different in Egypt. If you want to salt your food in Egypt, it will immediately be interpreted as a sign of disrespect. By salting your food, you are actually implying that the chef didn't do a good job, and as a result of that, you're not satisfied with your meal. The idea behind this is that the chef is the author of the meal. The chef gives the flavor to the meal, making it exactly what it is. If you, by any means, try to change the original flavor of the food you're given, you're actually changing the chef's recipe and directly insulting them. And they interpret that you think low of them and their cooking skills. The same thing applies to chefs in Portugal. If you don't see a salt shaker on your table, don't ask for one, because they will take it as an insult. I kinda get that though. It's like when I cook the perfect steak and someone asks for steak sauce. Yet, I'm talking about you. You know who you are. Number 2. Burping. If a baby burps, that's one thing. But once you're over the age of like 3, if you burp at a restaurant, you'll definitely elicit stares. Well, that's us and our civilized behavior. But there are other countries where it's great to burp, especially in public places. In China, Turkey, and some parts of the Middle East, burping is seen as a good thing to do. If you burp after a meal, it means you've really enjoyed your food. Burping in these cultures is considered a real compliment to the chef. But there's a catch. You are not required to burp after every meal. In fact, you shouldn't. Why? Well, burping out of respect should only happen when the meal is really good. If you just had a snack or a small casual meal, there's no need to burp after it. But if you had yourself a true feast and you loved the food, then burping is absolutely expected. Also, in Turkey, you shouldn't start eating before the oldest person at the table starts to eat. This is also a part of their dining etiquette to show respect for the elderly. Compliments to the chef. Number 1. Spilling food and drink. Burping at the table is one thing, but spilling your food is a whole different level entirely. However, in some cultures, spilling your food and drink is a desired thing to do. Believe it or not. Let's start with Afghanistan. If you drop your bread on the floor, you don't throw it away. You pick it up, kiss it, and then put it back where it was on your plate, or next to it. The reason is that people cherish food in this country so much that this is a sign of utmost respect. In several countries of South America, such as Bolivia, Chile, and Peru, if you're drinking something, you're expected to spill a few drops on the floor before you take your first sip and say the words "Para la Pachamama," which is like expressing thanks to the goddess of fertility. In China, it's not a problem if you leave a couple of stains on the tablecloth after finishing your meal. This is not a sign of rude behavior and bad manners, but in fact, a sign that the food was great and that you truly enjoyed your meal. Just don't overdo it, of course. What are some other cultural differences that you can think of? Tell us in the comments below. While you're there, I really need to know, to steak sauce or not to steak sauce? I'm putting together the invite list for my next barbecue. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care.